So they went to him and said, Bill, Mr. Keister, we want you to develop something that demonstrates how powerful this thing is. So he went back and he sat and he said, what am I going to do? He said, I know, I'll invent a tic-tac-toe machine. Because nobody's done that. I mean, they can't say you knew what you were supposed to be doing. It's a whole new thing. So it's a long story, but he created a tic-tac-toe machine that they built after the Second World War and toured the country and sort of was a recruiting tool for Bell Labs and sort of for the future. In 1992, I think it was, I actually had a video at a family dinner, and I filmed him telling the story of this whole thing.
Yeah.
I could show, if you're interested, I could show you the video, but I got a transcript of it.
Oh, bravo.
So anyway, he did this thing. It took him about a year. When he was finished, his boss's boss basically said, what the hell, you've been working on games? That's no good. Put it away, put it under the shelf. And at first he was pilloried for the idea that he had actually done this. But then after the war, they came back and said, you know, actually that's not such a bad idea. And so it became sort of minorly famous. But this got him interested.
But are you going to mention the World's Fair?
Well, they took it to the, I think it was at the 64 World's Fair.
Yeah, in New York.
It was at Disneyland.
Didn't a chicken play against it?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, all these things are sort of out there. We didn't quite establish whether that's reality or not, but it was out there in a big way. But that got him thinking about how to use puzzles as demonstration projects for various ways of using Boolean algebra. And a gray code, of course, is a real good example of that. And so he decided that he wanted to make it to pattern out the Chinese ring puzzle, because he, as a kid, he played the Chinese rings and thought it was pretty amazing.
You guys would have liked him a lot. He was cool.
He was never part of the puzzle community. He almost did, but never did. But he was definitely a puzzler. There's a lot of different things, but it was definitely not. So anyway, he decided that he was going to try and emulate the Chinese rings using equipment out of the Bell Labs, storage shop, relays and switching and light bulbs and things. And so he wired together what he was thinking would be a Chinese ring puzzle, and he got the wiring wrong, and he realized that the gray code could be generalized, and there was more than one way to do it. So that took him from Chinese rings to the hexadecimal. He said, I could do that. But he also wanted to do a standard Chinese ring, so that's what spin-out was.
This one.
Yeah.
So that. And that spin-out gives you an idea
87 moves
of his woodworking capabilities. So it's a beautiful little box.
He made that one, right?
He made that one.
He made that one by hand, or with whatever tools.
Carry on. Don't watch your wife. Don't watch your wife.
So he had these. So he created these things, but what he also realized. So that this I don't fully understand, but here is a Chinese ring puzzle, and then
Did
here.
you make that, Bill?
No. This is
Okay. It's a okay.
Here is the Devil's Tower.
Yep.
Disentanglement puzzle. Essentially these are equivalents. The difference being that here it's the rod that goes through, which is fixed, and it's the rings that move around it. And here it's the rings that are fixed, and it's the rod is flexible around it. So it's sort of two manifestations of the same thing. And the hexadecimal and spin-out puzzle are one manifestation of it, but there's another manifestation of it, which is the flexibility in a different place. Okay. Now, I'm not technical at this, and I haven't really studied, but I think that the Chinese ring is analogous to this with the shuttlecock that goes back and forth. But so then we've got the opportunity for a fixed ring with a loop on it. Okay. And so he came up with a couple of simple ones. Now, why don't we migrate away over here?
Okay. I can do that. You know, this is kind of fun. This is going on this is like memory alley.
So one of the puzzles he came up with for the flexible loop was, he said, let me turned it into artistic form. And I'll
Fine.
make a cat,
Uh-huh.
which has 2 rings and is relatively short. It's sort of a beginner style puzzle. And let me make a horse. And I have a loop on it, but a horse is 1 more, so it's 1 longer. And when Andrea and I came along and said, hey, Mr. Keister, we want to make a company out of your games, we took the hexadecimal and the cat and the horse, and we turned them into commercial products. And this is our first packaging. So the cat, this is a college friend of mine who was just a high school teacher in graphic design and starting to teach packaging that came up, and it was very primitive sort of packaging. We were
What was the name of the company at that time?
Binary
Binary
It
Arts.
was Binary Arts.
And I do have to jump in and say, for keen minds of all ages,
Uh-huh.
was over a dinner with tons of wine, and our friend John came up with that. We didn't know what we
It
were
was
doing.
true, and we did. That was really
Well, I
good.
guess, yeah, it was pretty good. I mean, but nice window.
Yeah.
But a really good graphic designer said, those look like feminine hygiene product colors.
Now that you
Kinda
mention
do.
it, yep.
But so finding a wire bending place that would actually do this, and then finding wood shop. I was all up in Maine. I went for wire bending. I went to
You?
Connecticut.
Wait,
Yeah, who? Yeah, exactly.
This is kind of a question. Andrea and I started out absolutely going, but this turned
Oh,
into
this
my
before
part of
me?
the business. It was after you, but
oh, okay.
I mean,
No, go ahead. I just remember the wire bending. I thought it was fun.
going up to Connecticut with Mr. Keister, we had a great time.
Yeah,
doing that.
okay.
There
Sorry.
was a lot of other trips.
Yeah.
A lot of
Sorry.
other trips.
Yes, you're right. But I love wire bending.
In any case, so then we got, Mr. Keister gave us access to his prototypes that he'd been making over the years. So here is a 3-ringed thing. The cat has 2 rings,
Right.
and this has 3 rings.
Uh-huh.
But then we start moving into something where you take a look at this,
Yeah.
where
Looks like a dinosaur.
it looks like a dinosaur. He called it the decapod
I
demon.
won't tell you what that one looks like.
Which one?
The first one that you
Oh,
picked up.
yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
get it. Yeah. We get it.
Okay, good. But check this out. Some of the rings come from over and go
Uh-huh.
clap from the top.
Right. And this one comes from under.
This one comes from
This
under.
one's from under.
This from under. So this becomes a code
Oh, and it's
code
musical.
sequence where it's up, down, down, up.
Uh-huh.
Similar to the hexadecimal where you can pull it out and change the fingers. So the code pattern changes depending on how you do, whether you do an inversion or not. And it's this inversion that is a new idea that people hadn't, I mean, is not in puzzle parlance these days, at least according to Dick and Gary. And the idea of combining them in order to make a generalized Chinese ring puzzle with the effect of having it be like a Devil's Tower is a new idea. And what Mr. Keister did is he came up with different animal forms, like this
The fly.
which is 2 inverted from unders. Or this grasshopper, which has an over and an under. Or this butterfly that, I don't even know, but, you know, it's whatever it is. It's, look, first one looks like it's under and da-da-da. But it just the same as the hexadecimal puzzle where you're setting it up and you set the pattern fingers. You can choose this pattern, or you can choose, you know, this pattern, or you can choose this pattern or this, and you get a completely different puzzle each time. So the notion of this Boolean algebra sequence, this gray code sequence going through with wire bending is, it's a really cool idea. Now, back when we were first getting started in 1985, this was my holy grail, was to get this out. But you could I could never figure out how to do. I would go to these wire benders, and they were like, no, I don't think so. So for many years,
This has never been put out.
it's never been put out. It
Yeah.
just got put sort of, into
These
the
are
archives.
fantastic.
You know,
I'd
I
love
don't, I don't think I've ever seen this,
Mhm.
honestly.
I would-
and
I
this
would
is one of my,
just
look at
die
this
for
guy,
these
right?
things.
I know. And this guy, and this, I've never seen this, Bill. That I can recall. I've seen the fly, but look at the, I mean,
That's just
incredible.
Aren't they? I mean, we were
Yeah.
like, we're going to make a fortune on this. And then it's like-
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, forget making a fortune.
Yeah,
they're just so
I was
cool
like,
looking.
that's not,
Oh, I
that
know.
wasn't really in
Yeah.
your thinking. Yeah, it was more like,
well, I mean,
How do
in 1985, I was putting a lot of energy into trying to make it work.
I've seen the horse and I've seen the cat.
mm-hmm.
You know, Kevin Sadler from the UK has got him on his blog, so I've seen photographs of him. But those are so cool.
Aren't
They're
they
just-
They're
yeah.
amazing.
So I don't think we can
And
get the
Mr. Keister
artistic...
made all those, right? He made them by hand.
He made them all by hand,
Yeah.
yeah. But
Look
since
what
this
Bill
the AGPI talk, I got together with my favorite toy mechanism guy, and he's come back and created this thing. I've taped it up because it's a little delicate. But this is a 3D printed thing that once we get it more into final form, it can go to any shape. You can modularize so that you can get 2 rings or 3 rings or 4 rings.
Oh, I see it right here. Yeah,
And we're going to make it so that each one can pop up.
it's got the same thing.
And then each one of the top rings, once you untape them and get them ready, you can pop them out and turn them around
See
and
the
redo
groove
it.
in there.
So
Duct
this
tape is
becomes
wonderful as well.
an extendable, invertible, basically it's a gray code setter for the Looney, or the,
Oh, and keep it pink. That's perfect.
which, so I think that this can be turned into something stylish and handsome. This is the whole 3D printer thing we were talking about. But it's a whole puzzle concept that's expandable from the cat to the decapod demon and every setting in between. And the actual puzzle play of it, depending on whether it's an inverted or a regular one, and just having to go and sort of figure that out, is really wonderful.
Wait, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Are you saying that with that, depending on how you set it up and stuff, it can mimic the challenge of
Every one of
different
these.
every one of these?
Yeah.
Okay, that's incredible. I didn't know that.
Wow.
Wow.
So that's fun. And then the topper, if we come back into the
There's a
Okay,
topper?
there's a topper.
Because that's pretty cool. I did not know that. I'd seen that, but I didn't know.
That's just, I can't believe you didn't put those on the market.
Well, we
manufactured.
Yeah.
Now
us,
maybe
we
you
would,
could. Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there's some cool write-ups about this stuff that I've got in literature. We did a special at the Computer Museum store on the Hexadecimal. So there are Mr. Keister stories in here, so you can find. But this, it's dated 1985, so that's when we started our business. I had thought that it was earlier, but I had remembered for many years this sort of a legend that did it, and then I was going through the files and out popped this paper that I found for the first time last spring. But I recall Mr. Keister talking about how he had a mathematical, basically, I don't know, explanation or proof for how this, basically generalized a theory behind the Chinese ring
I remember him
that he
talking
wrote
about
up into a mathematical paper that is quite technical, that he was going to send to Martin Gardner, but he could never get up the nerve to do it.
Oh my God, Martin
Oh,
would
my
have
gosh.
loved it.
And here it is, which is a computer scientist from the beginning of time, writing about the mathematics underlying how the Boolean algebra works in this Chinese ring puzzle.
And here George sits, Mr.
The
Boolean
relay
algebra
circuit, they're
from a
not
young
meeting my
man.
requirements for a simplified version suitable for entertaining people at a cocktail party.
Continue, Roxanne. I want to hear.
I finally came up with a slide arrangement with interlocking discs, and I'm sending one to you. The object is to remove the slide from the base. In the initial state, all of the discs are turned with their bars vertical, corresponding to all rings on the loop in the wire puzzle. This is old print, isn't it? The bars must be turned. It must have been done on a manual typewriter, and then copied. The bars must be turned to the horizontal position to remove the slide. The disc can be turned only when it is brought opposite the notch in the solid rail. The flat portion of the first disc ensures that the bars will be pointed in the right direction. For later discussions, consider that this disc corresponds to the rightmost or least significant digit of a binary numbering system, where 0 represents the disc in the initial or vertical position, and 1 the removal of a horizontal position.
Right, he's talking about spin out, and here he's
Spin
got
out.
the 0.
And
Bill,
one-
you know
and the
what's
zeros and
interesting?
ones.
Just having heard just so much you've read, really good explainer. I mean, that is a
It's
really,
very clear.
really clear explanation. You
It-
can visualize
yeah.
that.
Wow.
Wow.
So,
I've never
first people
heard
ever
that.
see this.
Oh my goodness.
Is that the original from him?
Yeah,
Whoa.
I mean, I made a Xerox of it, but
I was gonna say this is